We're going to spend a couple minutes talking about the book, Bringing Down the House. It's probably the most popular form of media that's come out before the movie. And it was written by Ben Merzick, and it's about the M.I.T team, which is world famous. Everyone's kind of heard of it. That's got into card counting. Probably a lot of people got into card counting because of it. So this book is a story of how the M.I.T team kind of took Vegas by storm, I think is how they phrase it, and how they won millions of dollars. Now, we can't personally speak for kind of the accuracy of the details. I've heard from some third-party sources that there's some like kind of exaggeration going on. And I can see how that is a possibility, but for the most part, it's pretty interesting to note that a lot of the story could very well and probably is true. The method that they use to play that level of blackjack in Vegas has been used. It's been used especially kind of in the late 80s and early 90s, where Vegas was a lot more unprepared for this type of play and those types of numbers. It's very plausible a lot of those the stories that happen are exactly as they appear in the book. But I don't know those people personally, so we can't really say. What I think is really worth exploring is kind of how the book presents blackjack and how that really applies to the blackjack player today. The big player technique, or BPing, as they talk about in the book, is really, in my opinion, a little bit more difficult to do, especially on that level, than it was at that time. In that story, there's kind of numerous examples of how they were the first people to play the big player on that level with that type of intensity. Now, they didn't create big player, but they certainly took it to different levels, especially as far as frequency and kind of dollar amounts. So, a lot of people think, oh, well, can't we just replicate that today? Well, what we found is that a lot of Vegas is kind of like evolved, and now that's just one of those things they're looking for. So if you find a player that's kind of hopping around to numerous tables, it sets off some radar that never used to happen. So in some ways, quite a bit of what you'll find in that book is generally inapplicable. And one of the other issues is kind of the dollar amounts that they're playing with. At one time in Vegas, it didn't matter what age you were, you could drop down $100,000 and people would just be like, wow, this guy must be rich. Since the publishing of that book and other resources and just kind of the advance of card counting, casinos have come to kind of scrutinize high-level blackjack play a lot more than what is presented in that book. So we found that replacing those stories in today's context would probably be impossible, at least exactly how they were presented then. Now, there are still ways to get high-level blackjack play and ways to use BP and other camouflage playing systems, but not in the exact same way that they present in Bringing Down the House. And you'll find that about most any form of blackjack, because the game is always evolving, and as the game evolves, the play that it takes to beat the game will also evolve. So there's really no one tried and true method that will work for all of history in blackjack. So it's important to be on your toes and to always be evaluating that. But besides that, Bringing Down the House is a very entertaining story of kind of what that team faced as far as internally and externally in dealing with each other and the team structure and the environment of Vegas and the casinos that were trying to come after them. So those are all variables that we've seen in little ways, shapes, and forms in our own career. I think the book is definitely worth reading along those lines, but just make sure you don't kind of use it as your quintessential model to model your blackjack career after.